This is Lightroom, so I've already kind of got us going here. If you guys, saw that Dropbox link to download the photos, we're gonna use that. Oops, I didn't have this nearly as closed down as I thought I did. All right, here we go. So basically, here's what I do is I start somewhere, and let's just start from the beginning. What is this? I got folders all over, sneaky. Okay, so I start with a folder like this, and this is going to be, you just make up your file structure however it suits you guys. Let me turn this on too. This will be helpful here. I'll make that little red circle around my mouse. When it clicks red, it's my left click, clicks right, that's my right, or blue is my right click. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, you can always drop them in the chat. I'll try to watch this chat window here and see if there's anything that pops up or anything, that kind of needs addressed, but I'll watch that and see if there's any chats or, ping me somehow if you want to, but that's the way to go. So these are the same photos that I shared with you guys, so you guys could follow along. You're welcome to use your own photos, whatever works good for you. After I've made my customer folder, so what I will do is say this is at an event, and we would name this, let me just show you. I'll open up an event folder here. So if we have events, this is where we have to be very, very organized. Let's say we're in BFI 2020. We'll have customers. Yeah, that's a kind of bad example. Let's just use this little tiny dash and dance. So this is like, we put an exclamation mark here for customers, and that keeps up at the top. But we'll have all of our pictures here, just broken down. And these are our pictures. And then we'll put them into a customers folder, like Whitney Blackwell here. We'll put Blackwell Whitney. And then we make these here. We just drag, these are the originals. They're copies of the original photos that Whitney bought. This is an old race, and they didn't let me strobe here, but we're going to have Lightroom create these social media and high resolution folders. So I'm going to show you guys how we do that, and a lot of other stuff here today too. So it's going to kind of move fast, but if there's something you miss, if there's something you want me to go back over, and just, hey, shoot me a message. This is on your computer. Yes. Cheryl, yeah, this is on my computer. Is these are in a Dropbox folder that I emailed everybody earlier today, about an hour and a half ago, if that's what you're looking for. Does that make sense, Cheryl? Maybe I'm not understanding your question, but this is on my external hard drive on my computer. And then I shared this Dropbox folder with you guys that has these pictures in it. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I'm going to keep watching this chat. And then, so we're going to have Lightroom make these social media photo folders, and then it's going to automatically put the photos in there, and it's going to watermark them or put a logo on them wherever we want it to. And then it's going to be a finished file. And then same thing with your high res here. It's going to do the same thing with high res. If you're using a Mac computer like I am, you can just click on a photo and hit spacebar, and it'll preview it like that. So that's how I'm doing that. Okay, but let's just look at these photos that we have here today. What I do is I just drag and highlight all of them. There's a lot of ways to highlight all of them. Command A. There's a lot of ways to highlight all of them. So anyway, I do that. I right click, and then I go to open with, and I drop down here to other, because Lightroom doesn't show up here. I don't know why, but we go to other, and then we go here to Lightroom Classic, and then Lightroom Classic again to click on the program itself. And then we just go to open. And then that'll just take like a few seconds here, and that will open it up into Lightroom. And I'm just going to check these because sometimes I've already imported these two photos. You might recognize these if you were in my course on how to master horse portraits. So that's those are from that course. So I had to check them because Lightroom thinks that it knows actually. Donna's in now. Okay. So Lightroom knows that we have already imported these pictures here, and that we maybe don't want to import them again. So I had checked those boxes because we do want to import them again from scratch, and that's that. So the next thing we want to do is there's Donna. Donna's in. Okay. Crystal is in. Admit. Okay, guys. All right. We're getting some people in there now. Now we got 7 out of 8 of you guys here. Awesome. Good to see everybody. Glad everybody's here. All right. So you guys that showed up late, you didn't miss too much here. All we've done so far is, whoa, that was crazy. All we've done is open these. We went right click, open with other, and then we chose Lightroom and we've opened them. So let's drag this back up here. Whoops, sorry guys, a little glitchy. Trying to do a lot of things here, my poor computer. Okay. All right, so you guys that just were here a little bit late, you're caught up now. You should be caught up to speed. So we're importing these. These are just in the library here. If you're familiar with Lightroom already a little bit, if you've used it a little bit, you've used this import dialog here. So some important things we want to look at here on this import dialog is on our left over here. These are the different hard drives that we have. You'll see I have my computer, the internal hard drive here. This big G RAID is a like 12 terabyte G RAID that I have plugged in underneath my table. And then my Equine Photo School hard drive, I've got a little one of those, and that's what we're going to be working in today. We're working under training videos. I've put it in here. So we're doing a Lightroom training right now. These are some of the other trainings that I've done. And then this is my Etsy shop hard drive and all these images, a couple of those old hard drives. But anyway, that's just kind of, it shows you where it's coming from. You can click include subfolders. So if you've imported just a folder and there's subfolders within that folder, it will then hunt through those subfolders too. So that's nice to check sometimes. On our right over here, this is where a lot of people get screwed up right away, right out of the gate. So I want to make sure you guys are all following along with me and you have build minimum previews here. So our previews, we want to be minimal. We want to edit the smallest size of file that we can. It's just like a preview. It's kind of like in when we do video stuff, it kind of has like I don't forget what they call it, but it's like a smaller version of the video that we actually edit, and then it applies those edits to the to the full size version. So again, if you guys have any questions, drop them in chat. I can't see your faces or anything, so drop them in chat, and I think everybody is muted for the most part, but go ahead and drop your questions in the chat if you see them, and I will jump back. I've got that right here so I can watch it. What I don't have checked is build smart previews. I don't like that. It just hogs up space and memory, and it takes a lot more like processing power to do. So what we're trying to do is streamline as fast as we can. It says don't import suspected dupes. So that's what it was doing there. It was already kind of doing that, even though I have it unchecked. These have been imported multiple times for other things too. I like these two photos for demonstrational purposes. So you can have this checked if you think that you want it to help you catch suspected duplicates. So you can check that. That's personal preference there. Otherwise, your develop settings, I don't have it do anything on import. I know if you have like a certain style and you want everything, no matter what, forever, always the same style imported, then I guess that's one way to do it. It's not my preferred way to do it, but whatever. You can do your metadata and just click this and drop down, and later after this, you can go in and edit, make sure that your metadata is in there. You can put your company information, your copyright information, all that stuff, so that when you export photos, it'll have that stuff burned into them. And when you share pictures, okay? That's about it. There's some other little things here. We don't want to copy it as a DNG. We just want to add. We don't want to copy or move or do any of this. We want all the photos. Everything's pretty straightforward, I would think. Otherwise, what else we got? We got check all, uncheck all. Those are, nice if you want to, make sure they're all checked. Sometimes if you're importing a lot of photos and they go past this initial screen, I just click the check all just to be safe. Make sure I'm grabbing all of them. Okay, then the last thing we're going to do is hit import here, and this will bring them into Lightroom. It will import them into Lightroom. All right, here we go. Just takes a second, gives you time to get hydrated or stay hydrated. All right, so I've imported these 5, and these are the same 5 that I shared with you guys in Dropbox. So if you're following along with me, you can follow right along. So this imports them into our library, and you see up here that library is selected. Now, if you see a lot of other things, you can right click here and uncheck the ones you don't use. So I never use the web, slideshow, book, or map. Those just don't do me any good, and they're confusing for my crew and my help that is with me at different events. Sometimes they're trained that morning, right? So like I don't have a lot of time to tell them not to use these things, then they start clicking around and bad stuff happens. So they get on this like sidetrack and then they never come back. So I want them to not run into any bottlenecks here. So I've eliminated the things that we're not going to use on a daily basis. Can you import directly from your camera? Yes, you can. When you plug in your camera, or you are connecting your camera some way, or you plug in a memory card to your computer, it will ask you in a pop-up, and I've just turned that off because I don't like to do it that way. I like this folder structure and to put it onto a hard drive first so that it's backed up, and then edit off of that hard drive instead of editing off of my camera, just because I like to have the safety and security of having things backed up and then copied and then working on the copy of the backup. You know what I mean? So I like to have that kind of safety net there. And then the other nice thing is when we're in this library is that if you do put everything and you're editing them in their forever home, right? So for example, let's look at this one here. We're in our equine photo school. We're under where are we at? This shouldn't be right there. Anyway, we're under here. Lightroom training pics is where we're at. And if we go show, we right click on that and go show parent folder, this will show you that it was, in this training videos folder. And then it will show you that if you go to my hard drive, and then I go to training videos and I go to Lightroom training pics, I can find these again that way too. So it's nice. A lot of times, like earlier today, I sold one from way back at Ollie's Images 15. And, I had to go way back here under events, and I had to go back and find some pink buckle pictures from a long time ago. So I could go back there and I could see that these were from, on this hard drive. So it was a way for me to go back and find them on my old hard drives. I have 2.7 million photographs, so it's organization is key to my success here. So staying organized and staying efficient helps me a lot, and Lightroom helps me with both of those things. So let's dive into the next thing. So you can see your histogram here. This is a histogram in your top right corner. Your quick develop settings, you can set this up so it automatically does a certain thing, whatever you want it to do on import. If you are, if you always want it to do a custom white balance when you import, that's great. I typically don't because I'm shooting in different environments all the time. If you were a studio photographer and you're shooting the same, settings, same studio light, same everything, and you know that your camera needs this little tweak every time, then that's one way to do it. I'm shooting in a lot of different environments and a lot of different ways. So I leave that off because I need a little bit more control. Keywording, you can keyword these things if you like. It just helps you, with your organization. I prefer to just put them where I want them in the folders ahead of time, so I don't have to worry about keywording them. I know right where everything's at. There's a list of your keywords that you could use. You could add your own, whatever you want to do. I don't bother with that personally. This is my metadata, which is your data about your data. And you could type in all of this stuff, anything you want here. You could give photos ratings here if you want to too. I'll show you an easier way to do that in the future here. But basically, you could type in all this stuff and then it applies, so everyone has your website and your company name or whatever. Just customize this so that every time you import stuff, it applies that to it. Comments, I leave that alone. So that's that for the library. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Probably the only other thing to really show you on this screen here is, sorry, I want to make sure I'm checking off all these boxes on my list. So the next thing, I have this customized. A lot of people ask me how you do that. You just right click and brings up this, and then you choose the personalized one. So then edit identity plate, and you can pretty much do anything you want with this. You can do whatever font you want. My Ollie's Images is Annabelle font. And so we just type that in there, and then you can change the colors any way you want. I've chosen red and gray and black. So that's that. Pretty simple. You can do anything you want there. There's other options, Lightroom classic options, whatever, Adobe ID, whatever you want to do. I just did that. So that's pretty straightforward. It's minimal. It's not really necessary, but I get a lot of questions like, how did you get your name up there? So that's that. Now you know. All right, looks like we're down to 6 participants. So hopefully whoever slipped out slips back in. And this is I'm gonna put this up for a recording for you guys, because I know sometimes your internet kicks off, or life happens. So I get it. We'll have this as like a recording for you guys for a very short time. All right, so the next thing we want to do here is go to our develop module. You can either click it or just hit D on the keyboard, the letter D for develop. And then it brings you up to the whatever picture you have selected. It brings that up, and it kind of we go from here. So you'll see on our left, we have all these user presets, and as you hover over them, they change, they bend, they warp, they do different things here. So I've created all these. That's why they're called user presets. You will probably see, if you click here and go to manage presets, you will probably see this huge list of presets. And I have unchecked every one of these boxes because I don't like what Adobe has to say and do and their suggestions. I like to make my own, but feel free to use theirs if you want to. I just have this user preset. That's my stuff that I've built in here. I'll show you how I do that as we go along. After we edit one picture, I'll show you how to make a preset. But just for reference on where that's at, it's over here. Your snapshots are like as you edit. If you like an edit and then you want to try something else, just click the plus, add a snapshot to it, and then you can jump back to that quickly and easily without having to undo all your edits. And then your history is just a history of your edits. So they all start out with the import, the date, the time, and then as you make adjustments, like we'll just make some adjustments here. As you make adjustments, it piles them into your history there. So we'll just bring that back for now. Excuse me, guys. All right. So that's that on that side. I usually leave that kind of collapsed. And then down here at the bottom is your thumbnails. These are all the images that we have imported. And you'll see there's 5 photos. We have 1 selected and the file name of that file. The folder that's containing these is the Lightroom training pics. That's what I named it. And then you can do this to, if you have like an extra display or you want to airdrop to an iPad or something. Sometimes like you have a client that wants to like watch what you're doing on their iPad, you can use this and it'll send it to there, send it to another display. These other buttons do other things, but it's not really all that necessary. So let's skip over and look at our right-hand panel. Now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty, and this is what actually does all of the heavy lifting. This is how we edit photos over here in the right panel on our develop module. Now, what I like to do is if you hit Shift and Tab, you can get rid of all of those on the top, left, bottom, right, all of those panels, and Shift Tab brings them back. Now what you can do is just hit Tab, and that gets rid of the side ones. And for the life of me, I can't remember how to get rid of just the bottom ones. But what I like to do is get rid of all of them and then just bring back the right-handed one. And there was a shortcut. I used to know what it was to bring back the right-hand one, but I've forgotten. So there's ways to look it up. But for now, just click the little arrow over there and it'll bring back just the right panel. That way, if I'm editing just one picture and I want to do a good job on it, or if I'm doing like this where it's a video demonstration and you probably have a split screen so you're following along, this just makes it easier to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to make that as big as I can, and you can drag this a little bit narrower. Yours might be narrow now. You can drag that and make it a little bit wider. It gives you a little bit more fine-tuned adjustments on those. sliders. So that's just when you get that double-ended arrow over there. As we go down this from top to bottom, we have our histogram here. If you don't see it, you can just click on this to view it. And this will show you, as you highlight, it'll show you your blacks, your shadows, your midtones, your highlights, and your brights or your whites. As you kind of move your mouse across there, you can see it highlighting each section. And it'll tell you down here in this bottom corner where it says ISO 2000 right now, it'll tell you there's your blacks, there's your shadows, there's your general exposure, there's your highlights and your whites. So as you go across. So what you can do, some people don't know this, but what you can actually do is you can drag this and you can just grab part of it and drag it. And you see it's making adjustments for you. So if you want to brighten up the whole image, just drag the middle. If you want to bring down your highlights, you can bring down your highlights. So you can actually just grab this and manhandle it. So you can fudge this wherever you want it to go. If you want a darker picture, there you go. To reset any of these values, just click on the word. So just double click, double click, double click, go through down to that resets it back to where it was. Typically what we want to see is a nice big spike in the middle and then, kind of drops off on either end, but it kind of depends on the picture. So if we go back here and we look at like this picture that's really dark and moody, we've got a spike over here that's our bright whites on the horse's forehead. And then we've got a lot over here in the darks because a lot of the picture is dark. So if you guys go back to this picture here, and we'll go back to where we are. So on a histogram, the way we read a histogram is our left side is our black, pure black, and on our right side is pure white, and everything in between is, everything in between. And then on your vertical axis, is the number of pixels. So as we can see, there's a huge number of pixels that are in the blues, and they are down here in this, shadowy kind of area. And you'll see that a lot of these dark blues here up in here. So that makes a lot of sense, right? A lot of our picture is that dark blue. Okay, the next thing is if you click this little box here, you'll see that nothing's happened. So let's show you really dark. So, you can see some of these blues in here. That's because we are starting to clip some blacks down in here. Now, if we reset this and we click on the whites, you'll see a lot of these contestants are blown out. Their faces are pure white over here, the sides of their hat. That's because I have a strobe mounted over here that's blasting them in the back of the head. And then we're getting a nice little fill light. You can see it on his face there. It's a little bit brighter. That light is doing that, but mostly it's not hitting him quite so much as it is shooting behind him. So he's a little bit past that particular light, but there's other lights that are hitting him. So this one is strobed in about 9 different places. So that's an easy way to do that. You can also hit J on your keyboard to get that to come up. So you can click on those, or you can hit the letter J on your keyboard. That's kind of nice if you have a sky that's blown out, or you want to make sure nothing is, blown out. We could, pull down those highlights so nothing's blown out. So if we do like that, we have nothing clipped, nothing blown out, but it's not that great of a picture either. So all good. All right, so the next thing, as we come down, let's skip this row for now, and we'll come back to it. The next thing we're going to do is treatment. You can do color, and this is where you can switch to black and white if you so prefer. We'll take the J off there. If you want to go to black and white, you just click that and then edit through black and white. The editing is basically the same either way. We edit things a little bit differently, or at least I do when it comes to black and white pictures. When I'm doing a black and white, I'm editing for the highlights, shadows, midtones. I'm editing that sort of thing. Oh, excuse me, having a tough time today. So my edit style is a little bit different when it comes to black and white, but I'm going to take you guys through color editing today, and black and white is another thing for a more advanced topic for another day. So our exposure slider, okay, no, let's, sorry, skipping around, getting ahead of myself. The next thing is your color profile. You can do color monotone. That's the same thing as color or black and white there. Your white balance as shot, like I shoot everything as a manual, and this photograph is a JPEG. So we know that because we don't have any options here when it comes to editing our white balance. The other thing that I failed to mention, and it's on my little check sheet here, so I should be paying better attention to my check sheet here, but sometimes I just get on a roll, on a roll, and I forget to check things off. Okay, if you hit the letter I on your keyboard, I as in igloo, and you make sure you're in there. Nope. Why aren't I there? Oh, it's just slow. My Lightroom is slow today. All right, so we hit I on your keyboard. You can change these if the things you see on here isn't the same thing I see. Like my camera is a 20 megapixel camera. This is your metadata. I was shooting this at 1/250th of a second, which is my max sync speed for my lights at f5 ISO 2000, 420 millimeters. Okay, so I shows you what lens I had on. I had the 12300 2.8. It's the sports series from Sigma with 1.4x teleconverter. So this tells you your settings here, your metadata, and then you hit it again, and this tells you what folder it's in and the name and the date. Okay, hit it again and it goes off. All right, what have I missed? Are these photos in RAW or JPEG? So this particular photo is in JPEG. If we look down here at the bottom, why can't I see my little thing? Okay, so these are in RAW. So then you'll see we have a lot more options when we go to a RAW file as far as white balance goes. And I'm going to show you guys how we edit a JPEG and how we edit a RAW. So I've included both for you today. There are lots of reasons why I would shoot one versus the other, but that's not a topic for today necessarily. So I've included both for you guys so you can see what we can do with the JPEG and what we can do with RAW. But these are all of my action pictures are in JPEG. All right, so the next thing is, so white balance, we can't really choose a white balance here, but you can still change your white balance some here. And you don't want to get crazy with it because it starts to get gross really quickly. But if you think that it's a little bit off, for me, I think it's pretty darn perfect in camera. So I don't really mess with it. If it was off by a little bit, say it was a little warm like this, and you want to, sometimes this eyedropper tool, if you know that like this strip behind him is supposed to be white or gray, even, you could click on this and it will reset that white balance to a more proper, it'll make that a nice white. Sometimes that's not perfect. You might try a banner in the background, something else. I just try to nail it in camera, so it's pretty darn close. Pretty much perfect. Okay, is it okay to select auto white balance? Donna, it is okay if you want to start there with auto white balance, but you can see when I clicked auto white balance, now it's like this weird green sort of tingy, I don't know, it didn't do that good of a job. So when you're editing in RAW, I don't care if it's RAW or JPEG, auto's not usually going to get you the results you want. I personally shoot everything as a manual white balance. So I either pick a manual one or I set in a custom white balance in camera. If you guys sign up for the set up your camera thing, we're going to go into some white balance stuff there. So join me on that topic, Donna, and I will in that class, I guess. Come to that class and we'll talk more about shooting pictures and when we're going to shoot with different white balances and that kind of thing. Okay, is that cool? All right, so the next thing is after you've chosen a white balance or not, you can manually set it with these sliders. You can adjust it to your heart's content that way with your temp and tint. The next thing going down is your tone. You can hit auto tone. I don't really like that. It's kind of like this weird, I don't know. It never does what I want it to, So I'm going to go back here to import. Okay. I don't like hitting auto tone either. Like, as you saw, it was just extra bright and weird and kind of strange. So I don't really love that. So what I like to do is go down through here and set it how I like it. And then I like to make a preset. So as you'll see, I got a bunch of these presets that will work over here. But what we're going to do is show you guys how I built those. So the first thing I do is if my exposure is way off, then I'll adjust my exposure. Like here, I might just bring it up just a couple, I don't know, 0.2 maybe, like not much, like it doesn't need a whole lot. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll bring my highlights down just a smidge and just kind of watching things, like watching his face. I'm not concerned about the background hardly at all. I'm more concerned about my subject, right? So I just bring the highlights down a little bit. If we get too wild, it gets mushy and muddy. So we don't want that. We still want them nice and bright, but not crazy. So a little bit there. Shadows, we just bring up our shadows just a smidge, about the same, maybe a little bit more than our highlights did down, but in the opposite direction. So I'm dragging those to the right, so they're plus. And then our white point, you can hold Option, and as you're holding Option, drag, and you'll see like these guys are blown out. And then you'll see like part of his shirt starts to get blown out. This is called setting the white point. And so you can do that, and you can see that a couple pixels have blown out on his shirt, but basically nothing else has. So we haven't lost very much data on his shirt. Same thing, we hold Option again for blacks, drag that down to the left, and there we can see some blacks. I usually like a little bit more blacks popping through. So something like that, that just brings back that contrast, brings back our kind of punchiness. It lets that, those shadows go to black and the highlights go to white. And we're utilizing the full spectrum of our histogram. So we have some pixels all the way to the left and a few all the way to the right, and then kind of makes for a nice professional looking image. As far as texture goes, this can get out of hand really quickly. As you can see, like if we drag it all the way, it's really textured. So I don't like to add very much, maybe just like a little bit here or there. Same thing with clarity, maybe even less than I do texture. And then dehaze, unless like the tractor just drove through before I took the picture and it was smoky in there or something weird was going on. Generally don't touch the dehaze slider unless it's hazy and you want to kind of cut through the haze. If we do see it darkens it, and then you have to go back up here and brighten it, and then it's kind of grungy. So if it's not already hazy, then don't worry about it. So if it looked really hazy, we could cut through the haze, but this picture isn't. So then your vibrance, I don't mind doing a little bit of vibrance here. Again, don't get carried away with it. I think, unless that's your style, then it can easily get out of hand and get wonky and weird and look like cartoonish. So we don't want that. Something around maybe 10-ish, depends on the picture and depends on your camera and your lens and your ISO settings and all this stuff. But a little bit of vibrance goes a long ways. Texture, I very rarely will, or not texture, excuse me, saturation. I very rarely will even bother with saturation because it gets so out of hand so quickly that it just looks like a cartoony kind of mess. Sometimes it's fun to desaturate a little bit if you're kind of going for that vibe, I guess. I hate to use the word vibe, but I guess if that's the look you're going for, that's the look you're going for. So one thing I do want to point out before we continue here is that you'll see that I only have one panel open. If you are the type that likes to have all the panels open, then ignore this next thing I have to say. But what I like to do, I had a double session going on, so I dropped one. Oh, okay, cool, Donna. Okay, so lens corrections here. If we right click on any one of these, we'll see this where we see this solo mode. So what that means is it'll only have one panel open at a time. So if I uncheck this, it will let me open up as many as I want to. But if I go through here and I check solo mode, it closes all the ones except for the current one. So if I want details, I go to details and it closes lens correction. So it's one nice thing to keep you organized so you don't have to close and open. It'll just automatically do it. Is that cool? Does that make sense? So that's solo mode. You can expand all, you can collapse all. Those are pretty self-explanatory, and you can customize the panel. So the next thing is our lens corrections. So I like to just put it on profile and then remove chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration is like that purple and pink kind of tinging you get around corners. I don't think any of these images will have it, so I don't want to dive in too close here, but you could see, if some of it you would see when there's a bright highlight against a dark shadow is when you usually see it. We can get into that, or you guys can Google what chromatic aberration is later. But basically, if you check that, it'll go through and remove or do its best automatically to remove any chromatic aberration. The next thing is enable profile corrections. So we do that, and that is your basically lens distortion or barrel distortion on your lenses. You can see this did none because it's a JPEG file and it doesn't have this Canon lens as a default. So you have to go through here and pick Canon or whatever lens you have. and it chose this wonky lens because it didn't have the lens that I have on here. Oh, there it is, 70-200. There we go. All right, so if you can see here, if I uncheck and check, that's our barrel distortion. So as long as you pick your correct lens here, the 70-200, no, that's not what I had here. I had this 120-300. All right, that's why. Hold tight. Sorry, guys. I wish I would have thought about what lens I had. Sigma. All right, there's a Sigma. I don't think this lens is here. Okay, yeah, it's not. All right, so uncheck that. So if your lens isn't here, like this one isn't here, this lens really doesn't have very much barrel distortion anyway, but I'm going to show you guys. You go to manual here, and then you go to distortion, and then you can pull it, push it, pull it, whenever. So what you want to do is find where your, like you have lines like this line I'm watching in the background right here on the fence behind him. I just want that to be straight and not curved. See how like it can be weird and be curved? So you just want it to be like perfectly straight, and really where it was at was pretty much spot on. So it didn't really need any barrel distortion there. All right, when I've used lens correction, it seems like I've had to keep checking on it each image. Is it possible to keep it ongoing for all images if I'm doing a group, or do I have to create a preset? When you create a preset, it'll just make, excuse me. Sorry. When you create a preset, we'll just make sure that lens corrections is checked. That should make it go for all of your pictures. Or if you see, let's go down here to our strip here. If I select all three of these images, they're all the same event, same lens, same everything. If we go to sync here, make sure that your lens corrections is on, and make sure as long as they're all the same lens, it'll make sense. If it's not all the same lens, then you have to change it for each one. Does that make sense? That's why you'll see over here, I've got an outdoor Canon 70-200 and an outdoor Sigma 120-300, because these different lenses have a different profile. And so I had to make a different preset for each lens. So hopefully, I think that answers your question, Donna. Okay, so the next thing is your chromatic aberration. If you see that Lightroom didn't do a very good job on the automatic, you can go through and adjust these until it does. Just zoom into your picture where it has chromatic aberration and fix it up. And then your lens vignetting, you can adjust, like this lens, the corners were a little bit dark, so I just bring it up there so the corners are nice and evenly lit. So the next thing is our tone curve, and you can do a lot of the same things you do in the basic panel with the tone curve. I like to bring my highlight or my shadows up, my highlights down, you know, kind of bring something in, not so crazy, but you know, I like to either do this or the basic curve. Whoops. And then if you want to delete them, you just, you know, double click. So if you do something wonky and you want to undo it, just double click it, it'll reset. Okay, the tone curve, this adjusts your highlights and shadows and everything in between. If you want that nice matte look, I know a lot of people on Instagram, that's really popular lately, is to grab this and then just bring it up, and that brings you a matte, and then just bring this back down. So it gives it that kind of matte sort of finish. And then you bring your highlights back in there, and that lets it still be, you know, still gives that a nice S curve, but you've crushed those shadows, is what they kind of call that, crush the blacks. So you can do that if that's your prerogative. Otherwise, I like to just do something like this. Maybe bring this up just a smidge. There we go. Yeah, that's a little much. All right. All right, so that's that, and that's how you you know, you can either make it flat or not. All right, then the next thing is our details. So going down here to details, I like to zoom in on these when we're doing details, and 100% is okay. You go up here to your navigator on your top left, and you can pick whatever you want. So if you want to do 300% instead, so it goes from fit to 300%. I like to zoom way in on my images, make sure, you know, things are nice and sharp and whatever. So I like to, when I'm doing sharpening especially, I like to zoom in a little bit and kind of just watch. I'm just making sure nothing crazy is getting sharpened. And then I'm not going to worry too much about, you know, the background, but I want to make sure his face isn't like weird. So give it some sharpening, but not too much. You know, if you get overkill, then everything's sharpened and it looks kind of icky. So somewhere in the middle here is a nice middle ground. And maybe that's a little much. Maybe right in there. Just kind of eyeballing it. You're going to use your judgment on this. It's going to be up to you as to where exactly this lands on every image. It's going to depend on your ISO settings. It's going to depend on your camera body and how it handles high ISO or whatnot. Then the next thing is, this is kind of crazy, but a lot of people like this. Sometimes people watch over my shoulder and they say, "Oh, can you just hold it there?" Because watch this. If you hold Option key, and if you're running a PC, it's probably something different. Alt. It's probably Alt on a PC. But if you're holding Alt or Option and you go over masking and you drag this, then it switches to this. And as we drag it to the right, it goes down. And some people say, "Can you just print that off for me?" Because they love that. I'm like, this is just a masking tool, but whatever. Anything that's black will not be sharpened. Anything that's white will be sharpened. And so I like to drag it down to where it's just my subject and very little else. So sometimes on a picture like this, that's a lot. So mostly my subject is getting sharp and the background is not so much. So we're holding Option and we're dragging this to the left or right, and somewhere I want it to end up about like that. That's pretty high on that masking, 85 or 95. So it's way up there, but it depends on the image and how far you need to take that. Now on your noise reduction, this is your luminance noise reduction. Again, I would zoom in on this and then watch like your background here and his face, his hat. So as we bring that, see that background just goes to smooth and his face is a little bit too smooth. So let's back it off. I mean, we're on a 1DX at ISO 2000, so there's not a lot of noise here, but we'll just give it 10, 13 maybe, something like that, where the background smooths up a little bit, but his face still has detail. You can fiddle with these detail and contrast if you want to, but I kind of like to go fast, and so I'm not too picky. If this is an image that you're going to print really big and it's really important to somebody or you, and it's taking, you want to take your time on it, then go through these a little bit more. There is better software out there for reducing noise, but if you're like me and you just want to blow and go, Lightroom is where it's at, and it just goes fast. And so it's easy to get carried away with this and make it look mushy and painterly. So you want to not be heavy-handed with this. You want to be gentle, gentle with the luminance slider. And then sometimes if you're running into a situation where you're really high ISO and you start to see dots of red, green, and blue throughout your image, you can go into here and do your color noise reduction, and it will get rid of those. And it does a really good job of that in my experience. I think that's all I got to say about details. So next is transform. So let's zoom back out here and let's look at, this is not the best image to use the transform tool on, but if we had like a building in here, or we had some kind of structure we're trying to take a picture of, the transform tool is really cool, and it could take a building that looks like it's falling over backwards into something that's upright and perfect and nice. So if we hit auto on this, let's see if it does anything. It changed a little bit, but basically it's going to try to make something in your picture level. And so we don't want it for this picture. I mean, it didn't do that bad of a job. Maybe that is right. It made like these vertical and that almost level. So it does a pretty good job on auto. You can click guided. So if you had a building back here and we wanted to make, this straight, and we wanted to come down like this here, it would start to, adjust our building here. So it was perfect. And so you would just draw up to 4 lines here to kind of make sure different parts of your images are straight. And it's not the right tool for this particular image, but if you had an object that you wanted to be perfect in this you know, and you were shot at a little bit off, your angle is a little bit off, this is how you could correct that. Same thing with your level, your vertical, and your full. These are just automatic adjustments. You can adjust these sliders to, you know, to do your vertical. It does it this way. And your horizontal is the same, but horizontal, you can rotate it, you could change your aspect or scale, and then you could move it around a little bit. So typically for our horse and rodeo kind of stuff, we don't use this very much. It's not that useful for what we do most of the time. So let's go to HSL. Now this is your hue, saturation, luminance. If you don't see all of these, you can click on color and see individuals here. And then you can go to your reds, oranges, yellows, greens, blue, etc. Or you could click on the rainbow one and then see all of them on one deal like this. And then your reds, your hue, saturation, luminance for red is all in one thing. Or I like this, I don't know. Either way, it's up to you how you like to view those things. That's personal preference there. Either way, you have this little tool here. You'll see this tool come up in a lot of places in Lightroom, but let's say we want to adjust the hue of this blue back here. We would just click on that tool here, go to the blue, click, drag down or drag up, and we can change it from purple to teal back to blue. And I'm holding the mouse down and dragging up and down to change that. And you can see it only affects the blues. You can see people's shirts are changing too. You know, his shirt changed, it's now green. And then to just reset, just double click those things to reset there. Now, same thing with our saturation. If we want to increase saturation of that blue, desaturate it. Maybe you like the gray look, I don't know. Same thing there, pretty straightforward. The next thing is our effects. So our effects panel, this is post-crop vignette, which means after the crop. So it's after we use this crop tool, then we can change the vignette. We can make it white, we can make it black. Personally, I try not to get too heavy-handed on that because you can get out of hand really, really fast. So we went to effects, and then next is calibration. This is something where if you know that like your sensor is a little bit off, or you're shooting on like sometimes Fuji, sometimes those like kind of odd brands, they've got a little bit weird color tones. This is where you can come in and change that a little bit. Sometimes when I'm doing a portrait, like I'm doing like people portraits, I will take this blue saturation and bump it up just a little bit, and that will give their skin tone that nice warm glow. Just kind of a tip there, and just a little pro move that we use, that just that little bit. It would probably look good like on this one here where we have Sonia over here. If we did that and we just bump that up, so she just warms her up just a little bit, just a little bit helps. This is the before. It's not a huge move, but it just makes them look a little bit healthier. Sometimes skin tones don't always come through real great. I shot these on a Canon camera. Sometimes your Sonys look a little bit odd as far as skin tones. I'm shooting this on a Sony and it's been corrected, so my skin tone doesn't look too weird, I don't think. But anyway, that's just a little something you can do there. Now back to this image here. If we go down to color grading, this is like if we want to match our thumbnail to a video, we can do color grading just like you could with video stuff. So a lot of guys are coming over, you have crossover from the video world. If you're doing like a thumbnail for YouTube and you want to edit it in Lightroom and have your same color grading that you have on your videos, then this is where you would do that. And this is really nice to just, if you like that blue teal, orange teal look, you can come here, bring this to orange, and then bring these to teals, and it kind of gives it that, this is overdone, but it gives it that orange teal kind of look. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's how you get that really quick. You can, ease back on the blending a little bit, change the balance of it if you want it to be more warm or more cool, something like that. So you can do that if you want to. I kind of don't love that, so I reset these back. So that's if you want to do that there, you are welcome to. And then the midtones is the same way. So That brings us through that panel there fairly quickly. Okay, so once we've edited one image, the nice thing about Lightroom is you can apply that to all the images that have been shot the same exact way. So that's why I included 3 of these action shots in here from the BFI. If we hold Shift and click the last one, you can see it selects all 3 of them. Okay, so once we have Shift clicked the last of them, we have all 3 selected. Now we can go down here, make sure we start with the one that you want to get the settings from, and then shift click the last one in that series. If they're not all together, you can hold command and click each one individually. But what we want to do is hit sync down here on the bottom right, and then it'll bring up this sync settings or synchronize settings pop-up window. You can make sure that everything is checked that you want to have checked. Some things you want to be aware of here. So like spot removal. So if you've gone through, and we're going to use this tool here in a little bit, but I just want to show you guys, I just want to bring you all the way straight down before we go all the way to the top again. If we use spot removal tool and we've removed some spots like this dirt clod here, something, that spot's not going to be there in every single picture. If it is, like if it's a spot on your sensor, it might be there in every picture, but we don't want it to sample from the same place. If we were taking somebody's portrait in like against a sky and every shot was kind of the same, then you could use the same spot removal. But what I like to do is uncheck that kind of stuff. Any localized adjustments that are like that, that's very much like only good on that particular image sort of a thing. What else would we have? We might have, there used to be more options there for brushes and effects and weird things, but that's all been moved somewhere else, I think. That's it. So that's it. That's all I would do on that is uncheck spot removal. And then we just hit synchronize. And then you'll see these pictures down here at the bottom. Now they're edited. Now they're changed. These are now proper. If we would have cropped that, every crop would have been the same. You know what I mean? So we could have cropped all these to an 8x10, made sure they were all 8x10s, and then just go back and adjust the crop. So let's look at the crop tool next, speaking of. So let's go back up here just below the histogram is our crop tool. So this first one is like picture of a crop tool with some double-ended or some arrows pointing that we can spin it to. So when we click on that, we get this guide up here. Let's move that chat out of the way. So you'll see we have the 1/3 rule, and that's a great rule for a lot of things. Let's get rid of this other stuff here. Get rid of some metadata here so that's not in our way. All right, so we'll go back to this crop tool. Can you show again where to synchronize? Yes, I can. Sorry, Donna. Let's do that one more time. So on our synchronize, we've edited this picture here. We're going to shift and click the last picture here. And then our synchronize button is in the bottom right corner. It says sync. It's right down here. When you only have one picture selected, it'll say previous. Previous. So when you have 2 or more pictures selected, that button changes to sync, and we click that, and that brings up this pop-up window. And from that pop-up window, we just make sure like spot removal, some of that local adjustments that are only good on one picture, they're going to not be synced to all the pictures. So then we hit synchronize, and then that synchronizes our edits to all of the pictures we have selected. Okay, and then back up here to crop tool. So we go up here under histogram, go to crop tool. So then we have what we call our aspect. So the first thing you can do is you can click on this and you can just drag and make your own crop. So if you wanted to crop him like this, you could. And then you're just manually dragging in some random aspect ratio. Not really all that cool. So let's go back here to as shot. So a lot of times we're going to print this as something, or we want to post it to social media. So a lot of social media stuff is 1-to-1. So it's square. One side equals the same length as the other side, like width and height. Or we might be printing an 8x10, a 5x7, 4x6, whatever it might be. We can enter in custom sizes down here just by clicking enter custom size. The other nice thing about custom size is if you don't realize that 16x20 and 8x10 are the same aspect ratio, you can just type in 16x20 and it'll pop it in there, and then it'll auto correct you to this 4:5, which is an 8:10, which is a 16:20, because they're all the same aspect ratio. And then all you got to do is drag it in from the corners here. It'll maintain that ratio no matter what you do. If you want it vertical, just drag up. If you want it horizontal, drag horizontal. Or you can hit X on your keyboard to swap between vertical and horizontal. The other nice thing you can do is if you hold Option and drag from the corner, it'll zoom in and out or crop in and out from the center. So not holding Option goes like this from that corner, and the opposite corner stays in place. If we hold Option, then all corners move in and out from the center. Is that cool? Everybody make sense there? Okay, so if we made this an 8:10, I'd probably make this a vertical 8:10 because he's kind of vertical. And I'd probably crop it something like this because, this looks nice. And then we got some turds there at the bottom. We'll get rid of those. But if we did something like this, hit enter, there's our nice crop. If we're framing it, I would do like that. If it's on social media though, I would get it closer. I crop a little bit closer for social media and a little bit further for framing, because the frame always has a little bit of overlap here and covers up our picture a little. So I always give a little bit of room for the matte or whatever you want to call it. Okay, but let's bring those turds back in there from somebody else's horse. And we'll go on to our next thing, which is our spot removal tool. And what better spots than these? So when we click on this tool, it looks like a Band-Aid. You can grab this slider for your size or your feather or your opacity. I like to just have my mouse on the screen, hovering over what I'm about to remove, and just scroll up on your mouse. It's hard to see with my little red thing on there, so let's get rid of that. So if you scroll down or up with your mouse, I'll do it over here in the gray so it's easier to see. When you go scroll down, it goes smaller. When you scroll up, it goes bigger. I like to have my feather between 75 and 100%. So something like this. So the inner circle is 100% and the outside circle is 0%, and that's your feather. So what I like to do is do something like this and then just kind of paint over that there, and then it kind of makes that go away. It picked a spot where there's a little bit more manure there, I guess, to be more PC. So you can just drag this reference to wherever it looks good to you. And then I just drag it something like that. And then there we go. We've got a nice, kind of hid it away there. So you can hit H on your keyboard to hide or show. And there's that. Oh, one more thing. What I forgot to show you guys. Sorry. Let's go back to this crop tool. If we hit O, the letter O as in Oli on your crop tool, you can get these different layouts here and these different, if you don't like that, that 1/3 rule here, you can do a lot of different things. So let's say, you like this, or you hit O again, you got the 4 quadrants. You hit O again, you've got this layout here. Sometimes it's nice to put your subject here and have that kind of angle going on. This is like your golden ratio. This is your, what do they call this? This is something else. I forget what that's called. If you guys know what that's called, drop it in the chat. I knew it like 35 seconds ago, but now I forgot. And then these are your different crops for your 4:6, your 5:7, your 8:10s, etc. And then you could just have a plain old grid on there, or back to your 1/3 rule. And that's all just by hitting O. So if you're on something like this one here and you hit Shift O, that brings it around to different corners. So that works on a lot of different ones here. So like, let's look at this one here. You hit Shift O, that brings it vertical. So if you want to see how your crop is, hitting Shift and O will change that. So this one switches from there to there, hitting Shift and O. So sometimes that's cool, sometimes it's not. I don't know. It just depends on the photograph you're looking at and what you're trying to do. A lot of times, personally, it works out in my favor that if we crop something like this and like this, it tends to, from what I've noticed after tens of thousands of images here, this 1/3 line typically goes through the horse right at its belly. And then we have 2/3 horse and rider, 1/3 legs, and then a little bit of dirt in there. So to me, this looks good. And I find that when I'm editing pictures, that 1/3 goes right under the horse's belly or right through the very bottom of the horse's belly on a lot of pictures. So that's just one thing that I've noticed through that. Okay. And then we did the spot removal tool. And then we did, so this remove red eye tool is only useful if somebody has red eyes. The best way to remove red eyes is to not use on-camera flash. So if you get your flash or your light source off the camera, you won't have red eyes and you won't have to worry about this little tool. You'll just ignore it like I do. The next thing here is this is like your mask. So this is new to this latest version of Lightroom. They've changed this substantially. So let's talk about this tool next. So when we go to edit this picture of this horse confirmation picture, this will probably work a little bit better. But if we go to select subject, let's just see what it does. Did a pretty good job. I mean, that's pretty impressive, right? I mean, I might have posted about this the other day. Like I clicked this one click and it selected my subject better than Photoshop has ever done for me. Pretty impressive right there. We do need to just like add a little bit here. We can add it in with the brush and we can just literally, if we hold a space bar, it turns it into a magnifying glass. We can click and zoom in and get a little bit tighter here with this brush. And we can just brush in these other little parts here. And then you can, did I cover anything up here? No. Where am I? Oh, here's my auto mask right there. All right, they moved some things around on me here. You can uncheck that auto mask and check it. So when I'm definitely inside, when I'm not near an edge, I turn off auto mask. When I'm getting closer to an edge, I like auto mask to be turned on to kind of assist me a little bit. But you can kind of come in here and the auto mask will follow it around pretty dang good here. Does a pretty good job. There. Now it's done all of that work. Now it's red because of an overlay that it adds. So you can see where the brush is and where it is not. So where our mask is white, it'll show this nice red. So whatever we do from here on out is going to affect what's under the red. And if it got a little carried away, we can hold Option and go to minus. And then I just scroll down to make that smaller. You can use your bracket tools if you want to, but you can just minus that away a little bit there. Go to subtract with a brush. There we go, subtract. And you can paint away some of these things. Now, Photoshop is a better tool for doing this kind of work, but Lightroom's getting there. We're getting a little bit better with Lightroom. You know, with a little bit of touch up here, we can do a pretty good job of selecting just this horse and rider and not much else. Okay, so let's just pretend that that was good enough. If you were going to go, you know, really do a picture, you'd probably want to spend a little bit more time on that. You can either, let's get my little circle back, my red circle. So you can show overlay, which is that red. You can change the color of that red, green, white, black, whatever you want. So you can see that when we did it to these, we can see it didn't select that blaze on that horse's head. So, you know, sometimes changing those helps. You can also just go in here and pick whatever random color you want. Let's get that out of the way. That'll show you where your tool is going to be effective. So let's just go back to red because that's the go-to. So if we uncheck this, you can, you know, just see your picture again. But when you go to adjust these, it'll take your mask, it'll hide your overlay. You can always hit O and get your overlay back. So the keyboard shortcut is O to get that overlay. Now let's say we want to just brighten the exposure a little bit on our subject and bring our highlights down a little bit, our shadows up. We just want to edit just the subject here, bring our white so he pops off a little bit more. Bring down our blacks just a smidge. So that's great. Like there we go. Our subject is a little bit brighter than the background. Kind of just, makes them pop a little bit. Give them a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity. Kind of maybe that's a little overdone, but something like that. That's kind of nice. That's a feature that you couldn't, really get before. Now you can do the same thing to select the sky, and it's just the opposite where it selects everything but your subject. And then you could do just a straight brush. The other nice thing that I like to do is a linear gradient. So what we would do here is just drag a gradient up, and you can see it'll let you make either way. So that bottom line, anything below that bottom line is 100%. Anything to the middle line is 50% opacity. And then at that top line is all the way to 0%. So if you want a really narrow gradient, you just do really narrow like that. And if you want it to be a more smooth, long gradient like that, that kind of can look nice. Now, if you want to make sure that this is perfectly horizontal, hold shift and it'll lock into horizontal, or drag to the right or left and it'll go vertical. Okay, so holding shift makes it go vertical or horizontal, and that's nice. So something like this, a lot of times I'll go a big gradient like that, and then I'll grab this and I'll drag it back down so it's just a little bit. And then what I like to do is just, not necessarily on this particular photo, it's not that great of an option, but sometimes the ground is really bright, like maybe my strobe hit the ground in front of me and it was really bright, and I can just come in here and darken it with a gradient. Or maybe the sky is really bright and we want to create a new one, go linear gradient. If the sky was really bright, we could bring the sky down like this, and then we could darken the sky, and then we would just go back in, go to subtract, select subject, give it some time here, and then it subtracted the subject away. And you can see there's our overlay there. If we choose our overlay, see, it did a pretty dang good job. We just go in there and clean that up like we did before. But that lets us darken the background and not our subject. So pretty quickly, with some minor cleanup, we could come in with, darken the sky. We could really make that subject pop off of the background. So we can do a lot of changes with Lightroom. Lightroom is really good at global changes. And what I mean by that is affecting the whole photo, like the entire background, the entire foreground, or the entire photo at all. And it's getting better at localized adjustments, which is like selecting out the subject and masking, doing this gradient here and doing spot removal. It's getting better at stuff like that. It's still not as good as Photoshop at local adjustments, but global adjustments, it's really good at. I'll probably get rid of a couple of these masks here because I don't really, I just want to show you how they operate, but I don't want them to like be there all the time. That one was kind of good. Let's leave that one. If you want to see what you've done with something, there's these little switches, and then I'll turn off that entire thing. So if you want to hide all of our masks, so we can switch these on and off at any time. So there's a lot of different things we can do there. You'll see these switches all over here. So if you want to switch off your lens corrections, we could switch off lens corrections, or switch off, what else do we really do? Not much. So, if the tone curve, if we did a lot with that, we could switch it off and I'm back on. So you can do those at any time to kind of see, did that affect it? Is that good or not? You can always kind of switch those on and off. I think that probably is self-explanatory. Okay. All right, cool. So we've adjusted one. Now you can see we've cropped this one, and now if we want all of these to be cropped the same, we just need to select them all again and then hit sync, and we make sure that crop is selected here. And now see, we have these masking options here. We can check, we can uncheck different things. We have more options now that we've adjusted more on this picture, and then we just hit synchronize. And then that will go to these other pictures here, and it will crop them and edit them just the same as we did on the other one. Kind of nice. We can go here, and this crop needs adjusted, so I would just scoot that over. I'd bring it in this way. Oops, Command Z is always undo. I'd drag it from the corners in, make it smaller to retain the aspect ratio, something like that. Boom. Got a nice image there. Okay. All right. So let's say we are basically done with that. All right. So if we, I don't know, let's look at my notes here, make sure I'm doing the right thing, keep myself on track, because I will go off on a tangent that will last an hour, and that's not cool. So develop module, did that. Develop module tour, boom, edited a photo. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, cool. We are cooking right along. All right, guys. First thing I want to show you is at the bottom, you'll see these little flags. See, like down here at 1, when I hover on the 2, there's a little flag there. If we hit, if we have 1 selected here. If we hit P on our keyboard, it flags as a pick. And then if we hit U, it removes that flag. So P to pick a photo, flag it, U to unflag it. What we can do here is we can sort, we have filtering things down here. So you'll see filter, flags, we got settings, controls, whatever. We've got different adjustments, and then we've got stars. So you can hit 1 through 5 is give it a 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star, or you can do colors. So you can do 6 is red, 7 is yellow, 8 is green, 9 is blue, and 0 is setting a rating to 0. So you can do any of those things. So what we would do a lot of times is if I'm like with a customer and they're over my shoulder, we're looking like after a senior session, for example, and I take this in, I set up my iMac, I bring it in, sitting down with the family, having fun, looking at their pictures, and they say, "Oh, I love that one. Can we save that one?" And so I'll just hit P and we'll flag it as a pick. And then, or if like it's a mother-daughter, for example, the mother, let's say we flagged all of hers as a red and all the daughters were a yellow, right? So we could flag their favorite ones as red or yellow, depending on who's who and who's picking it. You can do all of the ones that are like, if you do a bunch of different wardrobes, say your favorite red dress, you pick all of your favorite red dress ones are going to be labeled red. And then all of your favorite yellow dress ones are labeled yellow. I don't know, whatever. Your favorite black background picture ones are all labeled blue. You just come up with a system that works for you there, but that's how you would do it. And then you could easily, when you have a gallery of hundreds of images, you could easily go through and just pick all the blue ones and say, hey, let's look back at all of those black background pictures we flagged as blue because we like those. Those are our favorite black background pictures. And then you could go through there and then go give them a 1 through 5 star rating after you've picked out your favorites to help narrow it down. So what we do a lot of times with customers is have them with us right there. If we have that opportunity to do in-person sales with them, we'll just bring them all into Lightroom and go through this as we go through, show it to them there. We can flag them, we can give them a color, we can give them a rating, we can do all of those things and help the customer narrow down the favorite images. So when you're going through hundreds and hundreds of images, it's a great way to narrow it down very quickly. Okay, that's when I want to make sure that I showed you guys that because that is a great tool. I use that all the time. And then we just, you unflag. So sometimes they're like, oh, I don't like that one as much as I like the other ones. You can undo them. And then you can also like right click on them and do that same thing too. So a lot of people don't like keyboard shortcuts for whatever reason. So if you like to do it the long, hard, drawn out way, you can right click and then go up here and then select any of these. So if you want to do that, or you can unflag, reflag. You can always reject to X on your keyboard. We'll flag it as rejected. It grays it out. And then you can remove all the photos that are rejected, all the rejects. So if that's, if you really, you can hit U to unflag as a reject. All right, I think that's about all I want to do there. Talk about that. You can add them to a collection too if you want to. I usually don't mess with that too much. Stacking, we do that when we bring them in and out of Photoshop. They create into stacks. This is where you can rotate left and right too. My mom calls me all the time and says, how do I rotate a picture in Lightroom again? So this is A lot of times she'll shoot a picture that should have been shot vertical, or her camera didn't orient or something, or somebody sends her, because she has the Wrangler Horse Rodeo News. Somebody sends her pictures and they're, they've been rotated for whatever reason. So she'll just go back up in here and rotate them. And then, you can rotate them that way. Okay. Do you have a list of the keyboard shortcuts? Crystal, I don't, but I saw some somewhere, and what you can do, come on, Lightroom. What you can do to learn them is to just look at when you go over the menu items. So what's a good example here? Like photo here, if we went to, rotate left, rotate right. So instead of right clicking and going to rotate, hit command bracket left, stuff like that. So it shows you the keyboard shortcuts here. Like B is set to target, like, I don't know, V is convert to black and white, simple stuff like that. Tools, you've got your white balance selectors, W, if you hit that, R is for crop, Q is for spot removal tool. So you can kind of figure them out that way. There are lots of companies. You can go on Etsy, you can go on a lot of places that will do a keyboard overlay. So you can just lay a piece of silicone over your keyboard and it'll tell you the shortcuts on there. Really nice. You get it for Lightroom, Photoshop. You can get them for whatever specific program that you're interested in. But I just kind of try to memorize them as I go instead of having a huge list. I just try to, my go-to ones, I just try to remember the ones that I need all the time. And then I try not to fill my head too much with all of the different ones, because there's a crazy lot. Like, as you saw, in any one of these, there's a million different things. So G, compare, C is compare. You can hit C on your keyboard, and then this compares two different photos here for that. That kind of drives me nuts. I try not to do that if I can help it. Whoops. Undo that. You can hit Y. Whoops. Go back to develop module here. You can hit Y on your keyboard, and this will show you the before and after. I wish there was, like, in some programs you can go up to and it'll show you keyboard shortcuts, and it's just like one of these things, but I don't know that it's here. If somebody else has a way to know where those are at, then by all means drop it in the chat, help us all out. But I don't have a keyboard shortcut list, so sorry. As you can hit Shift Y and you can do a split like this, and then you can see before and after, like what it looks like, compare and contrast, and see the difference that we've made today. You can hit Shift Y again to go there. You can go Y, hit Y to undo that. You can go side by side there. You can go that way. You can go vertical too. You can hit it, this one. I don't know. My Lightroom is being laggy today. So what's the deal, Lightroom? All right, hit Shift Y. There we go. Now we can go vertical. How did I do that before? Shift Tab, Tab Y. Anyways, all right. Sorry, Crystal. That wasn't the best. I wish I had like a better thing for you there, but there's our. You can also hit backslash and hold it. That's your before. Let go. That's your after. Oh, I reverted all the settings by accident, so I don't know how I did that even, but there's your before when you tap backslash and then tap it again. There's your after. So there's a lot of different things. The backslash is right below the delete key. Those are just some simple things we can do. Oh, let's show you one more thing. On this spot removal tool, if you are truly removing like sensor dust spots, there's got to be some on this picture. Let's do it on this. So we have this bright blue sky here, and there's just gotta be. So we hit, if you don't see this bottom toolbar, let's get rid of this chat. If you don't see There's where I was hitting the dang thing. I was typing in the chat by accident. Okay, if you don't see this bottom toolbar right here, hit T on your keyboard and that will show or hide that toolbar. We can click this checkbox that says visualize spots. And you can see, boom, there are 3, 4 spots right there. We can adjust the slider to show more or less. Let me show you one thing other too. See this weird jaggy looking sky thing? This is because we're looking at, when we imported, we did minimum previews. So when we zoom in, whoops, fancy. When we zoom in and we give it a sec to load and then we zoom back out, that'll go away. It's just because we're on minimum preview. So that's just like one little thing you got to kind of be aware of. Not a real big issue here, but let's just drag this back down to where we just are starting to see the spots, but not all of the extra stuff. So we can see there's a lot of spots on this, and that's, kind of embarrassing, but I should clean my sensor more often. Anyway, basically all I'm doing is I'm in my spot removal tool. I'm scrolling down to reduce the size of this thing. I like the innermost circle to be just a little bit bigger than my spot. And then we click on it. It samples over there. The spot goes away. Just that easy. We're just going to go quickly and grab some of these other ones here and do these spots. I can hit H on the keyboard to hide those. So as I'm going through, it just magically makes them all disappear. And just that easily, we can get rid of these spots. Now, I have cleaned my sensor since this day because I got home and edited these pictures and was completely embarrassed. So I went and fixed this. I went and, I clean my own sensors. I'm not scared. I have a free training if you guys want to at Equine Photo School. So the other thing you can do is you can drag a line. So if you had a weird, so don't do it. That didn't work. That didn't look good on this picture. But if there's like a power line, sometimes that works. Not very often. There's a better tool. There's several better tools in Photoshop, but that's not for today. But this kind of does okay. So once you do that, uncheck visualize spots, and then boom, it should look good. If for some reason, let's do my H here. Let's say for some reason we grabbed this tool here. Whoops, grab it the other way. Let's grab one of these here, like this one. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Let me grab the right tool. Let me click on the tool first. Okay. And then let's say, for example, it accidentally messed up and it grabbed this horse's butt. Okay. If it did that by accident, just say, see the arrow is going from here and it's going to here. So all we have to do is grab this. See it change to a hand automatically. We just drag that to where it looks good again. So we'll drag it up there. And now that spot has basically disappeared. Maybe there is even better. So there we go. If it messes up, you can just course correct. So it's pretty simple and straightforward tool to use. What we don't want to do with this tool, this is what I see a lot of newbies do in Lightroom. This should be done in Photoshop, right? So what I'll see you guys doing is going like this, getting wild here, doing some wild and crazy things, and then coming in here and trying to remove all this stuff. And it's like, I mean, that's the best I've ever seen it do. And it's like, well, there's a whole nother horse there. I've never seen it work that good, but that's still not what we want, right? Like that's still not great. What we can do is we could grab this and you see I've shot it with enough space here to like, I mean, that's not terrible, but just crop it now. Yeah, exactly. Like you would just crop it. This is terrible use of this tool. You can see it doesn't look good. It's okay for like moving this rock. If we did it like this, that would remove the rock, okay, but it's not great for like removing a lot of things here. I've seen people try to use it to remove a head stall. It's not that good. It doesn't do those jobs very well. This is better use for Photoshop. Or when I shoot this image here, I would, when we got a good shot and we think like, all right, we killed it, let's take that horse out. I don't change any of my settings, don't change my focal length, don't change anything about it. I just did a video about this the other day and posted it to my YouTube channel. But basically, we would walk that horse out. I wouldn't move my lens, my camera, nothing would change. I would take another picture of that. And like, it would be really nice if I was on a tripod and literally nothing moved. But oftentimes I'm handheld. So I do my best to get another shot of this whole scene without the horse or the person in it or the shadows or anything. And then it's really easy to just line those layers up in Photoshop and then mask that out. So that's another topic for another day. That's advanced, but I see a lot of people making the mistake of not taking a picture of the background while they're doing a stud shoot. It'll make your editing life so much easier. Your future self will thank you, I promise. Okay, so that's that. That's the visualize spots tool. I just want to show you how we move the spots in the sky. There's probably spots all over this thing, but I can't see them when they're not in the nice smooth sky, right? If they're not on a nice smooth gradient. You're welcome, Crystal, for the tip. Happy to help. That's what we're here for. So we're going to learn a lot more than just Lightroom today, aren't we? Next thing we need to do is build presets. So let's go back to this image that we've edited here. So we've gone through, we've made all these edits on this image here. Sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth, but that spot removal tool will just not work here. And I want to make sure that we see that before we get too crazy. All right, so let's make a preset, because let's say we want all of our like team roping images to look like this, all of our event images to have this edit to them. And maybe we're not going to bring them all into the same and edit them all at once and be able to sync them. Maybe like tomorrow we're going to get another order and the next day we're going to get another order. Or maybe we're just going to have like a bunch of orders at one after the next, like it usually goes. So what we're going to do there is we're going to make a preset. So we've edited that one image and we come down here to preset on the left-hand side. There's a big old plus sign here. Make sure that you click the plus sign and then create preset. I'll show you how to, we can import them if like you bought a preset from somebody. I don't recommend that. It never turns out good. It's a waste of money. You can manage your presets. That's what I showed you guys at the beginning. Here we're going to create a preset because now we have this history of edits. And all we have to do is click create preset, and we can call this, I call it indoor strobed 120 to 300. I'm going to call this test so I know to delete it later so I don't mix up my actual preset with this. I'd call it Canon 2, or this one's a Sigma lens. Let's put it here. It's the Sigma 120-300, because that tells me what profile correction I'm using, and it tells me that I'm indoors strobed. I don't know. I like to keep things short and sweet. You can call it my pretty preset or whatever floats your boat. Make up whatever terms are good for you, and then make sure your group is a user presets. You can create a new group if you want. I don't use any auto settings, and I want all of these things checked. I don't check the masking stuff because that changes with every photo. These AI powered selections need to be recomputed. Excuse me, stuffed up nose. Recomputed on the target photo. So when you do these are the ones that we did over here with this mask, and we did, like subject and sky and stuff. So we want to make sure that we don't have those selected because we have to redo those every time anyway. Okay, everything else is good. We would just hit create, and now over here, here's our indoor strobe Sigma 120-300 test. So if we take one of these other photos here that we've got, we go back to import. This is what we started with. And then all we have to do, import the photo, boom, it looks just like that on import. Go here to this preset, and then all of a sudden there it is, exactly how we had it. Now all we have to do is come in here and crop it because we didn't have that checked as the crop. And let's say we want this one as a 5x7 anyway. So we would just bring it in there, crop it how we want it to, bring it in there, something like this. And then I just bring it down a little bit. So see that looks good to me. And then I check and look at, there's our 1/3 line running through the belly of this steer, running through the belly of this horse. You know, the steer is kind of wonky, kicking up its feet, but whatever. There you go. Something like that. So that tends to look good to me, and that's how we do that. Is that cool? So do you just click on the preset to apply it? Yes. Sorry, I glossed over that. Sometimes I go too fast for my own good. So we just click on the preset and that applies it. When you hover over a preset, it gives you a, a preview of what it's going to be. So there's dark and moody. See how dark and kind of moody it is? That was for our Halloween photo shoot we did with the students that came to my Halloween workshop. So we did, you know, some of these. I don't know why they're grayed out because they're useful and they shouldn't have a problem, but they might just need updated since Lightroom updated. But basically, yeah, you just you hover over them to see what the effect is going to be, and if you like it, then you know which one it's going to be. You just go ahead and click on it, and then it applies that preset to it. So it goes there, and then it shows in your history that you applied that preset. Cool. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. All right, what else did we do? We did that, and we built a custom preset. All right, now let's go through here and edit. Let's edit this picture real quick. So we'll do the same thing, but this is, you know, it's different lighting. It's a different kind of picture. Everything is different about it. We're not going to go to the point where we eliminate Sonia or get rid of the head stall or any of that. That's for another time and date. This is kind of a basic course. So hopefully this has been good for everybody. So I'm going to go into this picture here. I know the white balance is where I want it to be. I don't think I'm going to adjust it. It looks good on my screen anyway. So I'm going to shift tab here and then come here. Like I want a bigger screen here. Okay. So I just bring down the highlights a little bit. I don't want to get too crazy, but I just, you know, like to bring them down a little. I bring the shadows up a little bit, not too wild, but a little bit. Still, we want it to, it's a black horse. So we want to make sure that it still looks like a black horse when we're done. If you get too crazy carried away, it's no longer black. It's like this weird brownish gray. Side note, my horse when I was a kid, he was brown as can be when he was like a young horse. when I just got him, when I first got him, I was a little kid. I didn't know anything about naming things, so I named him Brownie. And then like 3 years later, this horse just went totally gray. All of a sudden, walk out there, this horse is gray as can be. So then everybody called him Brownie Gray. So that's what this looks like, is Brownie Gray. Anyways, side note, sorry. All right, so then white point, you know, same thing here. We just bring our white point up. You can set the white point if you want to by holding option and seeing what's blown out. So you're not clipping too much there, but something right in there. And then your blacks, hold the option key to set the blacks. Something like that looked pretty good to me. A little bit of texture, and then your clarity can make them look really shiny, but if you get carried away, it looks carried away. So be easy on that. But on these kind of pictures, you can get a little bit heavier handed on the clarity than you did the texture. But those two, like ones, you know, they're always a little bit off, but they're pretty close to each other. Dehaze, it's not hazy. This is a beautiful sunshiny day, clear as can be. You don't need that. Add a little bit of vibrance, sure, if you want to. Lens corrections, we just go down through here. Now you'll see when I click remove chromatic aberration, we probably had a little bit here in the tail, maybe. Let's uncheck it. No, this is pretty good lens. There's really not much. Let's see if I can find some. There's a little bit right there. Right here, there's a tiny little bit. So let's check that and see it goes away. So if you look right here, there's nothing there now, but when I uncheck this, see it's back. I don't know, maybe you can't even see it. Maybe it's not coming through on Zoom very good, but just that little piece of hair is a little tiny bit, so we'll remove it. All right, now our lens profile corrections, enable profile corrections here. We'll click on that, and that made a little adjustment, but you can see, there's our adjustment. It automatically chose Sigma 120 to 300. It knows because this is a raw file, that data has been embedded into the raw file, and Lightroom can detect what lens it is and it can detect the profile corrections. It's built in, it's ready to rock and roll. So it made it perfect, one click, easy. So it's nice to shoot raw for these kind of things where your little bit of barrel distortion matters. Confirmation pictures, we want this horse to look perfect. So we want to eliminate that barrel distortion and have a perfect picture, as perfect as can be. What we don't want to have happen is have our barrel distortion affect the way this horse looks. It's very minimal in this with this lens, because this is an awesome lens, has very little distortion, but some lenses are wonky. Okay, so there's that. We covered that already once, but I just want to show you the difference between that and a raw file. On our basic, on our raw file, as we saw earlier, there's all of our options. Okay. All right, tone curve. I don't really mess with the tone curve on this particular image. Not going to worry about it. Sharpening, we'll just bring the sharpening up a little bit and then mask it. So it's just our subject mostly. And then noise reduction. This is, look, listen, we're at ISO 400 on a 1DX camera. There's no noise like whatsoever, but give it a 3, I guess, if you want a little bit. But there's really not really any noise. Upright, sometimes if we hit auto, sometimes it just like does something good. Sometimes it has to think about it a little bit. There's a little change, not a whole lot. We will rotate this just a smidge, just this way, just because I know that's what Sonia wanted when I did this. We rotated it just a little bit because I can't hold the camera level to save my life. And she helps me pick up on those things. So you can see that down here at the bottom, we have a little bit where it came out, right? So we could just crop it to get rid of that, or you can scale it here and just zoom in just a little bit to get rid of that. Okay, so you can get rid of it there by scaling it, or you can just crop it to get rid of it. Either one would be the same effect. Our HSL, I'm going to leave this alone here, but just like before, you know, like if you want these greens to look like it's fall, then drag it down, you know, just that simple. You can go like that. You can drag them back up, make them look really green. I wouldn't get carried away with this. I try not to mess with this too much, especially on these like confirmation pictures. This is nice if you want to do like effects or you want something to be a little bit different. It's okay to do that. And your post-crop vignette, I don't like a lot of vignettes, so I like this to be at 0. I like my corners to be just as bright as my center. I do not like vignette. And then here's the same thing on our saturation. Oh, we adjusted that earlier. Our little bit of, gave it a little saturation for Sonia's skin, but it doesn't really affect the horse much, so no big deal. And I skip color grading because I don't want to color grade this image. I want it to be the accurate, true colors that it is. Okay, so there we are with that. All I would do to this image now is, like you say, I would crop this in a little bit here and just be done with it. So I would be something like this, I would think. There we go, pretty dang close. And now we've got a nice, you know, image of this horse. So that's that. Now let's go down to the next one. I'm just going to hit the right arrow on the keyboard, gets us to the next image over. To get rid of that metadata. You know, here we are. Let's move this chat over here. There's not a really good, I don't know if you guys can you guys even see this chat window on my screen? Because I think I'm just sharing Lightroom with you guys, but maybe I'm sharing the whole desktop. Okay, so if you guys can see the chat, I'm sorry if it's ever in the way. All right, so to edit this picture, this is a black background picture. This was shot at night, but you can shoot this, you know, earlier in the day. You can shoot this in a barn. We use strobes. You can see here's my octabox. You can see in the catch light of the eyes. And then you can see we got a little bit too carried away with this blue here in the eye, and we're going to fix that, and that shouldn't be there. We needed to move the strobe over just a little bit, but I had to have the strobe there for this particular effect I wanted. So sometimes you just got to, like 99% of the time, you need to shoot it right in camera. And sometimes there's things you just can't help it. And so this is what I wanted, and this is what we just got to do. So it's okay. So start here at the basic panel, like always, bring these highlights down a little bit to recover some of that blaze right there. and we can recover some of the details, but don't make it muddy, you know, but somewhere in here like that is good. Bring out these shadows just a little bit so we can see a little bit of that detail back there. And then set our white point here, holding option like usual, and then setting our white point. So just a couple pixels kind of pop. And then our black point, we can get a lot more carried away with our black point because this is a black background image. That's making the background truly black, 100% totally black back there. We can hit J on our keyboard. Everything blue is black, is pure black, or very, very close to pure black. Everything that's red is pure white. So we can see right there, we got a little bit of pure white there. It's blown out. We won't be able to recover it. And there too. We saw that when we set the white point. And we saw this, all the blue, when we set the black point. So that's a J on the keyboard. The next thing we'll do is we'll just do a little texture, a little bit of clarity. We don't want to get crazy, but I know Sonia, she likes this clarity slider a lot. She's like, oh, come on, do a lot. So we get maybe a little heavy-handed for her, but you just do it to taste, and you kind of watch, you know, everything that's sharp right here. You want to watch, make sure it's not crazy, unless that's the look you're going for. But okay, that's that. And then remove chromatic aberration, remove enable profile correction, same, just like always. Tone curve. Now this is where you can really see a flat black. You can bring it up here. People love this, like on Instagram and stuff. When you've made that background flat black, you crush those blacks. Not sure why. I mean, I love it. I think it's cool. You know, you can bring in your whites, bringing that back up, so you get that nice, you know, you get that nice proper exposure. You're utilizing that full thing, but you can see here, there's nothing in the blacks. Your blacks aren't even close to touching the far black in your histogram. That's just a nice thing you can do if you're going for that look. It's a cool look. It's a popular look. That's how you do it. All right, details. Again, you know, we'll just give it some sharpening. We will mask that sharpening way down so it's just the good stuff, not anything else. Okay, so let's get rid of this blue in this eye here. So what I would do is take this and then go with a radial gradient here. And we can just click and we can drag and make a gradient here like this. This might not be the best tool for this job, but we're going to try it out. So we can squish it, we can zoom it, we can pull it. We can kind of shape it to that eye. We're going to hit O to get rid of that overlay. And then we're going to just bring this saturation down a little bit. Oh, we have to invert this dang mask. Okay, so where's our invert thing? Because here's our, it moved it on me. Okay, so there, invert the mask, then everything inside the mask gets, is it the other way around? What happened to me here? No, it's doing what I wanted to. Okay, yeah, leave invert unchecked. All right, when they just updated the new Lightroom, the old one was inverted to have everything on the inside, and then uncheck to do the outside. So this is backwards. They just updated this program, what, 2 weeks ago or whatever. So that's that. We'll reduce this feather a little bit here so I get more of that eye there. And now we're getting there, but we just want to bring the shadows down a little bit. And now we've got that eye to where it looks more normal. We don't want that blue in there for sure. We want it nice and dark. We can bring that highlight up so it's a pure white catch light. And then we'll just bring our blacks down just a, well, that's too much. Just a little teeny tiny bit, something like that. That might not be exactly perfect, but it's pretty darn close. We might do a little even less blue. There we go. That's probably better. Okay, something like that. Let's go to this Band-Aid. Let's get rid of some of these little imperfections here. So I probably reduce this feather a little bit here and just click on these guys. Get rid of some of these little imperfections. So like this little hair, we can just drag that, and then that would take that. I don't love where it's sampled from, so let's just grab it there. That looks nice. This hair is going that way. Sample from here. Okay, and I would just carry on and do all of this. And ideally, our client or our handler would have, you know, done a little bit better at getting rid of these hairs ahead of time. But basically, go through and do that to all these little hairs, these little weird spots like that. There's a little spot there. Some of the stuff just drives me nuts and I can't help myself. But we'll just do a couple more. See how glitchy my mouse is when we're doing all this stuff. Okay, cool. So we're kind of like that. I kind of like this. I know just because I know Sonia, I know she would say she doesn't want this blaze quite so bright. So what we would do is I would create a new mask here and do a linear gradient and just drag that over like this. And then maybe even like that. And then we can hit O to get rid of that overlay, or you can just start editing it, whichever you want to do. And I would just drag this down and just bring our whole exposure just down. And that would be, just because I know my client pretty well, I know that's what she would want, is something like that. So then this is nice, perfect, just like that. And that is kind of our final shot right there. I think that's about where I would leave it. You know, of course, I'd go through and change, you know, tweak out some of those little details, but by and large, that's it. So that's what I would do. So there's our final product right there. I think that's shows you guys. Oh, you know what I could do with this chat? I could put it over there on my iPad. God dang it. I wish I would have thought of that sooner. All right. Man, that would have been so smart to do a long time ago. All right. Crystal says, did that kind of blur the bottom more? No, I don't think I had anything blurred there. Let's go back to my brush. There's my mask. The only thing this mask changed is the exposure. So I can move this out of the way. Can I move that to here too? Oh, look at me go. All right. I wish I would have done that for you guys a long time ago. So sorry that that was in the way. Live and learn. I just recently connected my iPad here. So I'm learning that that's even over there. All right. So no, that didn't blur the bottom because I can. So if you want that blurred, do create new layer, create new mask and then linear gradient and then drag from the bottom. So if you want the bottom to be blurry, then do that and then do your sharpness here and that will blur it some. And then you can reduce the noise. That'll make it blurrier. You can, if you want it even blurrier, just duplicate it. So right click, duplicate, and that'll duplicate it and make it even blurrier. So you can see like that's pretty blurry. If we uncheck, there's what we did before all the masks and gradients and stuff. And then there's after. So we added all this blur down here with these two. So if you want to blur it, you can, but I don't want to on this one. Did that answer your question? Did that kind of blur the bottom more? I've been focusing on the eye. Yeah, the eye. Yeah, that eye just draws you right in, doesn't it? It just like sucks you right there. But you can see all the way to the bottom. This is, we click here. Hola, señorita. Okay, see it's sharp. All those are sharp way to the bottom. So straight. You can see our depth of field is not, you know, it's like 2 inches here. We just have the eye in focus and everything that is, you know, that distance away from the sensor is all very, very sharp. I mean, very sharp. Look at, you could cut yourself on these eyelashes. They're so sharp. But the hair right in front and the right behind is blurry because we are, what are our settings here? If we hit I, we're shooting at f2.0 on 105 millimeter lens. So this is my 105 1.4 lens. This is a beautiful lens from Sigma. I highly recommend it. It is beautiful. That's what creates this nice blurred background and this blur here. Everything's blurry except for exactly what we want. That f2 gets that eye in focus and nothing else. Cool. You guys good on that? Everybody's solid. Let's look at the chat. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the bottom. Cool. Yeah, so now that we're good there, now let's bring back all of our stuff. Okay, so now let's say these are ready to be delivered to the client. We're ready to save these. We want to put them into we want to do two things. I'm going to show you guys how to do the two basic things that I do in Lightroom every single day, and that is create a high res and low res image. So we're going to do a high res and low res of all of these images. So we're going to do it a couple of different ways, but I'm just going to select all of these images, and let's just say we want them all to be the same. Okay, so I'm going to select them all. You can do this with one at a time, or you can do this with two, or all of them, whatever you want to do. I'm going to hit Shift Command E. That is Shift Command E for export. You can also get this done a lot of different other ways. You can right click and go to export, and then you can click this export here. I'll show you how to make these presets here in a minute, but we're just going to go export. So that's Shift Command E is what I always do. Keyboard shortcuts keep things moving along faster, and they're way faster than going through the menus. It's easier. So I'm lazy and I like to go fast, so I use keyboard shortcuts. I want to spend as little time editing as possible. Because I'm going to get the same end result. So if I can do that faster, by all means, right? That's why you guys are here. All right, so let's start at the top of this pop-up window that we get. So, and we're going to export to our hard drive. If you guys are using external hard drives or whatever, we're going to export that to hard drive. You can email it straight from Lightroom. You can go onto a CD or DVD if you're still stuck in the early 2000s. Whatever you want to do. There's these other things that you probably won't even see unless you have these loaded onto your computer, but hard drive is where we're going to be at today. Okay, so our export location, go down here. This is exports to, and then this is the same folder as the original photo. So on this, you can do these other things. But for this course, for this class today, let's just focus on the most basic, which is the same folder as the original photo, excuse me. So if you remember, when we were here at the very beginning of this, we had this as on my hard drive for Equine Photo School under training videos, under Lightroom training pictures, and then here's the images. So we're going to put it back into this folder that the original photos came from, and we're going to create a new folder called high resolution. Let's do social media, because this has more to do, more things that we need to adjust. I always start with showing you guys social media, so I apologize for that. So this will be a social media. So we're going to do hard drive, same folder as original photo, put in subfolder. You just type in whatever you want here, okay? But I'm going to type social media because that makes sense for me. It makes sense for my employees and customers. Everybody good on the chat? Okay, chat's still good. All right. Asking what to do if there's already an existing file in there. So say we export this and then we export it again. It'll ask us, say, hey, you've already exported this once. What do you want to do? Do you want to give it a new name? Do you want to skip? Do you want to overwrite? Any of that sort of stuff. So I always have it ask what to do. And then the next thing is file naming. We don't rename the files, but you can make a custom name. These are options if you want to, but for me, they slow down the process. So I don't rename it. And then the example here for our extensions, we have these as lowercase. If you notice straight out of the camera, these are all uppercase. The CR2, it's going to get changed to JPEG anyway. But these JPGs, these are all uppercase straight out of the camera. So it's just one more way for me to tell whether or not I've processed an image. When this the JPEG turns to a lowercase, I know that it's been processed through Lightroom. Okay, so here's our next thing here is lowercase. Video, we do nothing with videos. Lightroom doesn't even do video stuff, so why is that in there? Okay, so our file settings, we switch this to JPEG, and our quality is 80 because it's social media. And then our color space is sRGB. So hopefully you guys are shooting, your cameras are set to Adobe 98. Super important. I would go to your camera as soon as this is done. Make sure that you're shooting in your color space set to Adobe RGB, Adobe 98. You'll get a lot more colors. That smooth sky, like behind this horse here, that sky will be a nice smooth gradient when you're Adobe 98. If you shoot this in sRGB, you have a lot less color, so you're going to get banding in your sky. So that's a different topic for a different time, but pro tip, go make sure your camera's set to Adobe 98 or Adobe RGB. But now that we're going to export to social media, we want fewer colors because it needs to upload quickly to the internet, and your cell phones, your screens, all that kind of stuff is this sRGB. So when you're looking at things on the internet, they're going to be sRGB anyway. So we might as well as use Lightroom and all of its good math, its high quality math, to reduce our color space down instead of just letting Instagram do it or Facebook do it, because they don't really do a good job. So we're going to do that sRGB. Probably kicked that dead horse enough. Okay. The next thing is we're going to resize to megapixels. This is what I do because I use Zenfolio, and Zenfolio's social media limit is 1 megapixel, and it'll reduce down to that, but it won't go up to that. So what we want to do is make sure we're above that. So I'm just 1.5 megapixels to make sure I'm a little bit above their threshold when I go to send files through Zenfolio to customers as for social media. So I do megapixels 1.5. You can adjust to your liking there. And then I do resolution 72 because most screens, most internet browsers, that 72 ppi is perfectly fine. I know we're past our 2-hour mark, guys, but we're not far from the end. We're coming in close to the ending here. So everybody's still with me. So glad you're still here. Getting a little long-winded, but trying for you guys. Okay, so sharpening, output sharpening, we sharpen for the screen because we're going to be looking at it on social media on a screen, and then standard is perfectly fine. Our metadata, I include all metadata, but remove personal information and remove location information. So like my 1DX 2, it has a little GPS device on it, and it will embed the GPS locations of Sonia's house, and it'll tell everybody like where Sonia lives. So I remove that information for social media so that we don't get creeps. And then so the next thing is watermarking. You can turn this on. You can see I have all of these watermarks for all these different events that I've shot, all over the country, up, down, all the way to here. So what I do is I pick one, and you'll see, let's see where there's a good, easy one here. Like California shootouts. We got bottom center, bottom left, bottom right, top center, top left, top right. So I've got it in each of the corners and in the top center and the bottom center. That's where we place a logo. So you can go down to the very bottom of this and hit edit watermarks, and that'll bring up this screen here. And you can either choose text or graphic. I always choose a graphic. And let's just look at like Patriot here. It'll put the Patriot logo. I've already pre-made this in Photoshop, and I've saved it to a place on my hard drive where it will live forever. And then you just hit choose and you go find that, in your desktop, wherever, logos, and then you go and find it in logos. Let's say we're going to do this one now. So we'd bring that logo in there, and we would just adjust the proportions of it. We would adjust the horizontal and vertical, and we would pick a spot. So there's top left, top right, top center, etc. So that's where you would do that, and you would just save each one of those as a different preset, and it's simple and easy to go. So there's Oklahoma's richest in the top left, whatever, for example. Okay, I'm going to uncheck that for now because I don't want to put somebody else's logo on the wrong picture here. But that's what you would do. So if you had your own photography company, like little logo there, you could put that anywhere quickly and easily. This is so fast. I mean, we're going through this really slow so you guys can learn and how this works. But once you're actually using this, you're just going to click high res, and then grab your watermark and then go hit export, and you're done. Like, it's going to be a 2-second process, not a 2-minute explanation here. or more. And then your post-processing just do nothing. So it's pretty simple there. So all I leave open, because you can see you can expand and contract these. So I leave watermarking expanded and I leave the export location expanded. So that way, when I click social media, I can just double check that it says social media here, and then I can grab my watermark here. Just simple as that. Okay. All right, you guys good with me on that one? Any questions? Do you want me to go back and look at anything? I'll just give you guys like 2 seconds here in the chat while I quench my thirst. All right. Okay, I don't see any activity in the chat, so I'm going to assume you guys are okay. If that's not the case, let me know in the chat and I will be right there for you. Or unmute your mic and yell at me if you want to. That's always an option. The next thing we're going to do is click high res. I want you guys to ignore all this other stuff. I have an Etsy shop, so Etsy has its own requirements for photos, so I have an export for that. And then my stills for videos, I have an export preset for that. And then I have a 50 megapixel camera, so sometimes I need like a high res, but not that higher res. So I have a medium resolution. You probably, Donna said she's going to return tomorrow. Cool, Donna. We don't have a course tomorrow, but we do the day after tomorrow. So just to be clear on that, we have one on the 18th, not the 17th. Hopefully I didn't post that somewhere by accident on social, but 16th, 18th, and 20th. All right, so let's do high res because that's our next. We're just going to do these two, social and high res. The rest are for another. There's very specific use cases and not really that important. Once you get these down, you can make anything you want after this. But once you get this figured out, so high res is much simpler. That's why I do it last. So it's the same thing, but we change this to high resolution here. File naming is the same. Video is nothing still. JPEG on our file settings, still we're at JPEG. Now our quality is all the way to 100. And our color space, we're going to keep it at Adobe 98. You could go Pro Photo RGB and maybe get slightly better, but our inputs are equal our outputs. If your camera's set up for Adobe RGB already, which it should be, and it will be as soon as you guys are done with this, I know you're going to run to your cameras and double check. So there's that. And then we're not going to limit the file size here either. So file sizing, we don't limit the file size at all. And we want to make sure that resolution is greater than 300. Most places that you like go to print something, high resolution is 300. Most people want their pictures to be 300 PPI to print them. And like if you go to a printer, you're using a print lab or whatever, they're usually 300 PPI. I go above and beyond that just a little bit to 350, just to make sure that like in case something needs cropped a little or whatever, it's still there. It still has plenty of resolution to go and print something. You can make this say whatever you want, 400, 500, whatever floats your boat. I like 350. It seems like I've never had a problem with that. If for whatever some reason we crop it a whole bunch in here and we need more, if somebody asks for more, I can just go and change it for that one export. Our output sharpening is off. We've already sharpened the image perfectly the way we want it, so we just leave that off. Metadata, there's really like, we're going to print this thing, so I don't care if the personal information's on there. And then your watermarking, you can either leave it unchecked and have no watermark on it, and that's what I do for a lot of high res stuff, or a lot of times I will bump it into Photoshop, put my logo on somewhere really nice and small for a high res, like if it's going to a magazine or something and they want a nice little small version of my logo instead of this huge billboard, then I will go into Lightroom and then or Photoshop and then back to Lightroom and then export it, and then I'll leave watermarking off here. And post-process still the same as last time, do nothing. So that's it. So all we'd have to do is a high res or a low res. If you want to do both at the same time, which is what we're going to do now, you just check these boxes and check that. This is called batch export. And now this button is switched from export to batch export. We've selected two presets, high res and low res, high res and social media. And then we just hit batch export. And now it comes up with this screen. It gives you one more chance for some reason to change your file extensions. Don't know why, but whatever. So you hit export here, and then it's see in our top right or top left corner, two operations are in process. So it's doing a high res export and a low res export, and a little white bar is going to run across this screen here in just a second as soon as my computer catches up. But we're doing a lot of things because we're live streaming and using Lightroom, and I probably have Illustrator and Photoshop and Final Cut Pro, and there's some Streamlabs and like a million things open. So, you know, nothing like nothing like overloading your computer, huh? You can see I do a lot every day in all these different programs, and then I didn't get them closed before this started. Okay, so they both went over. So let's go to our Finder here. There now you see that it's automatically created a high res and a low and a social media folder, just like we knew it would because we told it to. Oh, here, sorry. I missed the part you have to click on to get batch export. Okay, sorry, let me go back. Shift Command E gets us back here. To click on the batch export, it's these little check boxes. So this is in one of the latest versions. This changed maybe a year ago. You get a little checkbox right there and a checkbox there. So once you do that, that changes to batch export here, this big button. Does that help you? But that you just check that one, and then go to batch export. Okay, so here we are, high res and low res here. This is our photos as a high res, and you can see they're like 8.5 megabytes, 11.6 megabytes. That one's pretty small, but whatever. So still 5.7 megabytes. Anyway, they're megabytes, right? And then we go here to social media, and now they're kilobytes, 300 kilobytes, 800, 700, pretty small, you know, so there's a low res. And then when I do the same thing, there's the high res. So they both look good on the screen. You know, that's why we do these social medias like this. So they still look good on your screen, but you go to print these two and you'll notice a huge difference when you go to print. 72 PPI versus 350 PPI. Yes, thanks. Okay, cool. All right, so that's it. That's how we export, and that's how we build our, oh, I didn't show you that part. Okay, so when we go to export, here's one thing I messed up. I glossed over this. So once you've made these, you go through here and you click your high res. You've made this. So you go through and you've adjusted all your settings like we just talked about. I glossed over this part. You're not going to see these high res, low res, all this stuff unless you click add. So let's do that. Let's do this. We'll say add, and then we just say high res test here, and then we'll put it in user presets. We create it. And so when you hit create, then you'll see that there. So that's probably where I missed you up there, is you won't see that unless you've created those presets. So then you'll go through, type in social media, go through, do all these changes that we made changes as you did along the way, and then click add and make your that. And then if you need to remove any, you can just remove them just like that, boom, and it's gone. So you have to build these. They're user presets. So as you go through and make all those adjustments, then you save it as a preset, and then you have it forever. So that's probably where I messed you up there, and I apologize. It was on my little sheet here to do, but you know, just do my best. So exporting, boom, build custom presets, boom. Okay, cool. Well, I thought this was going to be 2 hours, and it was 2.5 hours with a short break there in the middle. So I think we are pretty solid. So let's go back here to stop share and go back there. All right, how's everybody feeling? Are you guys good? I can see your faces now. So is everybody give me the thumbs up? I can't see Donna and Crystal or Annie, but see everybody else. So you guys good? How'd that feel? Is there anything that we needed to go over that we didn't go over? I think I've covered everything that was on my list. Awesome. Well, that's it. I will see you guys later. Keep in touch on social media. Reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. You know how to get a hold of me. So I'm here if you have any questions. But otherwise, I will let you guys go for tonight. Thank you for coming to my class. See ya.